friends, Hal here. Thanks for coming to Quail Studios Guitar, where you learn to become an awesome musician every day. A lot of people have asked me about my Blueridge guitar, and so I thought I'd take this opportunity, since I still have a cast on my arm, to tell you a little bit about my guitar and to help you to understand it a little bit, and my philosophy on guitars and why I like this guitar. A guitar has to be an instrument that just carries you away into this magical realm where you just, when you play it, it's an effortless kind of an experience for you. So when I play a guitar and I'm playing and getting lost in it, if I try somebody's guitar, if it just becomes effortless for me, the playing becomes effortless, and I love the sound and everything, it's just, I know that that guitar could be a guitar for me. And that's what happened with this guitar. One of my students was looking at guitars, and he wanted me to go along with him to help him pick one out. And he played this one, and he went, I really don't like it, and he put it down. And I picked it up and played it and said to myself, wow. And so I went back a couple of days later and talked to the owner of the shop, and I said, you know, I'd like to try that guitar out. And he actually just handed me the guitar and the case and said, take it home. If you like it, you know, pay me for it. If you don't like it, then just, you know, bring it back. And I just was flabbergasted at that. I mean, I knew the guy, but not that well, and he really trusted me. And so I thought, okay, that's the way you sell a guitar, is you put it in somebody's hands and you get them to play it for a while. And I really loved this guitar, so I bought it. Here, let's take a good close look at it. Here's the headstock. This is a Blueridge BR-73. Whenever I try a guitar out and I really like it, I think, okay, you know, this is a good starting point, because that's really what you have to be thinking of when you get a guitar. You have to think of, okay, this is a good starting point. Now, what do we need to do to make this an optimal instrument for me personally? So what I did was I made sure that this was a bone nut. I think at the time they were putting plastic nuts on this. This was about 2004, 2005, I believe. And so I had this, I took this in to a friend of mine who was a luthier, and he changed the nut for me. He also changed the saddle. Now the saddle, if you don't know, the saddle is this white piece right here. He changed the saddle, adjusted the height, and then he went over the frets, polished the frets, and made sure that they were all exactly the right height. Because when you get a guitar straight out of the box, you don't really know exactly how all the frets are. So I had him go over it meticulously and check out and make sure all the frets were seated properly, make sure that the height of the frets were just perfect. He polished them, what do they call it? He filed the frets if they needed to be filed to make sure that they all were perfect. He checked the neck and the action. You know, he adjusted the action on each of these slots up here, and he asked me, what kind of a player are you? And you know, I play different kinds of music and that kind of thing. He said, here, just play for me. So I played for him several different pieces, you know, parts of pieces, songs. And he said, okay, I get an idea of what, you know, how you play. So he set the guitar up exactly the way I wanted it. The right height off of the neck. There's also something called a truss rod, and you can see right there, I don't know if you can see it, you can also look it up, but there's a little rod that goes underneath the fretboard. And this rod goes up the neck, and you can actually twist it. You can twist it clockwise, you can tighten it, or you can loosen it. And what that does is it changes the neck. Let's see if I can. if your neck is a little bowed, it can straighten it. If it's a little bit too, like say if this is where the strings are, if it's a little bit too bowed like that, it can straighten it this way. So that's what a truss rod can do, and that's one of the reasons why we put truss rods in necks, not just to strengthen them for the string load that's on them, the tension that's on the neck, but also to adjust the neck. Wood can be adjusted, and it can be flexed a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. So one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure when you're going to buy a guitar that you look at the neck. Have you ever looked at a piece of wood to see if it was straight or curved or bowed or twisted or something? Well, that's what you do. You sight the neck. I call it sighting the neck. On the edge right here, you look down that neck and you see how straight it is. And you look down this side and you see how straight it is. Now if it's got bumps in it, if it's got hills and valleys or something, you may not want that guitar. If it's got a little bit of a bow going this way, some guitarists actually prefer that. If the neck is too straight, then it could be a problem, so that you might want a little teeny bit of a bow in it. This one is pretty straight. Not a bow in it at all. And I have it checked every couple of years just to make sure that, that it stays that way. Also, I have the frets checked every once in a while because after you've been playing for a while, you play your chords, there's little dents that happen underneath the strings if the frets are a little bit soft or something like that. So you need to have them refiled and readjusted. And after a few times of doing that, which actually takes a few years because it's not something that happens very rapidly. It depends on how much you play, how many hours you play, and how many hours you spend playing your instrument if those frets get dented. So you want them to be polished, you want them to be dent-free, because the intonation is critical for that. And that's what we're talking about. The intonation of the guitar. When you play up the neck, you've got to be able to play in tune, and having those frets perfect and having them polished and without any dents in them, having the nut at just the right place, having the saddle at just the right place, and having the right adjustments in the saddle, make sure that your guitar plays well. So that's what I do. When I get a new guitar, I get it set up for myself, for my playing, and make sure that these tuners are oiled. Everybody is different, so you might want to try out a lot of different guitars if you're going to buy one and look for one. Different sizes. This particular guitar is a 000, and I think Martin originally came out with this size. I love this size. I don't like the dreadnought sizes for performing because they're too big. I don't mind playing them. If I'm at a microphone and I'm singing and I'm standing up, it just feels too big and it doesn't feel comfortable. So I like the thinner body of the 000 and the smaller body also, because it fits my body better. It also gives me a pretty good sound. So there you go. I also put new strings on it, pretty often, depending on how much I'm playing. If I'm performing, probably about every 10 hours of performance, I change the strings. When I'm teaching, every 2 months or something like that, if I just teach with the guitar. When I'm doing videos, like I'm doing now, if I'm playing a lot, 15, 20 hours of playing, and then I change them. If I'm performing, I want them to be new strings so that they tune really fast, so they are always in tune, so that there's no intonation problems. When I start to hear that there's an intonation problem when I'm recording or when I'm videoing, then I will stop and change my strings and then keep going. Okay, that's all I have for the moment. We'll talk more about guitars and how to pick one out, and more about your guitar and maintenance and things like that later. Ask me any questions you want in the messages below, and we'll talk to you later. Oh, I'd like to hear what kind of guitars you like.